And we are live.
All
Welcome
right.
to this.
Yes, hello, multi-topic talk. How are you?
I'm doing great. And what about you?
Doing pretty good. I have off tomorrow. It's Labor Day here, so I'm happy.
That's amazing. We have something very similar here. And on my end it's kind of weird now with YouTube, but yeah, I'm doing amazing and we will talk about Metroid Prime 2. And I'm wondering if my computer will survive. Okay. Oh, it's there. Perfect. My computer will indeed survive. So we are live. So thank you for organizing this. Do you have
Thank
any
you for being here.
welcome? You're welcome. What do you want to start off with?
Well, the reason I'm featuring Metroid Prime 2 Echoes is because Nintendo shadow dropped Metroid Prime Remastered, and no one, I don't think anyone expected that. And of course, the game just everyone bought it, played Metroid Prime again, loved it again. And the big question then was, okay, when are we going to see Metroid Prime 2 Echoes for the Switch? And so that kind of made me, it's a big old question mark of whether, we're going to see that or not.
I think we will. And I've been saying it for quite some time now. They will shadow drop it probably in November this year because this will mark the 20th year anniversary. But that's my guess. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I give Nintendo too much credit.
Well, let's hear. So Metroid Prime 2 Echoes was released November 15th, 2004. So yeah, it would be the 20th anniversary. I guess that would align. I'm curious to see if they do some sort of trilogy like they did with the Wii.
Nintendo's greedy. Like most corporation nowadays, they're not as bad as Ubisoft, but I think they will release Echoes and then eventually they will release Corruption. Forget about having all of the three in the same game. I I don't think that's a thing anymore. It's sad, but that's the truth, I think.
Well, another thing I'm kind of wondering about is if they release Metroid Prime 2 Echoes for the Switch, are they going to do multiplayer again? Because all right, so before you answer that, so I picked up a copy for the GameCube this week, uh, just to kind of play. I've never played it on the GameCube, so I decided I'm going to give this a shot. I'll talk about the GameCube version later, but I tried to go to the multiplayer option, and it's not available. So I guess the server shut down.
On GameCube, there were never online servers. I think you need two controllers to be plugged on. I actually played the multiplayer with my half brother last week because I also have the GameCube version, and so I have the trilogy and the OG version of each game. And if you got two controllers plugged into your GameCube, I think you can access two players. And if you got like four controllers, you can access four players. But you need the controllers.
Wow, I feel really stupid. I just assumed that it was like an online multiplayer, like a Halo thing. Wow. Yeah, the multiplayer, that makes sense.
So I will
Okay.
say this, Nintendo were always a bit later than the other console, if we can call it that way. So PlayStation 2 had a multiplayer and Xbox had a multiplayer. But GameCube didn't add multiplayer the same way. They only had local. So you could play multiplayer, but with your friends or something like that. Like there
Yeah.
were no connecting stuff. The first thing Nintendo did with a multiplayer where it's not on the local on the same console is DS and then Wii. And but even DS, that was very like you need to be close by, I think. but the Wii was the first official console where Nintendo added a multiplayer. But even there, I think most of the servers for the Wii are now down because we got Switch. But that might be just a guess. I don't know about that. I never really tried to play online on the Wii. I always thought Nintendo was more of a family friendly thing. Um, what would you say about Nintendo based on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I'm watching there's a documentary on Amazon right now, Playing with Power, and it's kind of the history of Nintendo. And Nintendo doesn't really react too much to Sony or Microsoft.
Yeah,
I mean, let's like look at the Switch. I mean, the graphics just aren't on par with the newer consoles, but they don't care. And Switch 2, there's going to be an upgrade in graphics, but I don't think they're doing it in reaction to Sony or Microsoft at all. Nintendo's always just going to, stick to their core, which is, their fan base of customers and families and all that. So yeah, definitely.
and I think it's a good thing. Um, I will be blunt and honest with you. I think Xbox One and PlayStation 4 are the last gen I will be playing console. Uh, I I I know we kind of stray away a bit away from echoes and such, but I gotta say Nintendo has a magic the others don't. They make good games, and the others they want to sell. And I know Nintendo also wants to sell. Obviously, they are a corporation, they are a business, but they are more customer friendly. You can own stuff, and they don't make every game a live service game. And where it's heading at with the others, it's all becoming live service game, and it will be an issue eventually. Um, just saying that. So yeah, Nintendo is very different. They don't try to be the others, and I think that's their strength. That's if one company might survive the shifts in the generation, I think it's Nintendo. I think the others they won't last. If they only want to provide live service game, I'm sorry, but you have a niche audience. Yes, they will spend money, but that audience won't be as loyal as the older people like us, you know. um
Well, I mean, we're sitting here talking about Metroid Prime 2 Echoes, and let's look at Metroid Prime 4. I mean, everyone was waiting and waiting and waiting, and it took what, 7 or 8 years to finally get game footage. And we've seen that they came out and they said, you know what we have so far in Metroid Prime 4, we don't like it. We're going back to the drawing board. If we're gonna release a game, we're gonna release a good game. And I mean, Nintendo at their core is always going to do that, which
yeah,
I think is wonderful, because, okay, fine, we had to wait another year. I forget how long that announcement was, but, we were somewhat patient. But then once that trailer dropped, it was just like, you know what? Everyone just stopped caring that they had to wait. It was like, thank God it's here. It looks wonderful. I'm going to buy it. Thank you, Nintendo.
they announced it in 2017, I believe, and then it
At
got
E3.
forgotten. Yeah, it got forgotten, and then they promoted Dread. I'm wondering, did you play Dread at all?
Oh, well, yeah. Check out the YouTube. I did a whole walkthrough, a let's play of Metroid Dread, and on my last episode of the podcast, I was talking to another podcaster about he was playing it. Not a huge fan of it, but I love Dread. I thought it was wonderful. Too much to talk about with that game.
Um, I I see the appeal. I enjoyed the action. I didn't like the MI. So, um, that's me in a nutshell. But to go back on
A lot of
Metroid
people
Prime,
didn't.
to go and I get the point of Dread. Like that was the point of it. That was a gimmick, and I think it's cool to have that gimmick. It's just not for me. I like to look around and like I'm not really good at platforming, so I when I get pressured into running into places to survive, I I don't like the stress. I don't like the pressure, you know, like if I want stress, I have my job. I'm not
Well, it's in
I
yeah, it's in the name. I mean, Metroid
yeah.
Dread. It's like, fear. It's kind
Yeah.
of built into this game.
Yeah.
So I mean, but so with the Shadow Drop of Metroid Prime, I think they're getting a whole new generation ready for Metroid Prime because I think when they did that, they kind of knew there's a bunch of people that haven't played these games even though it's 20 years old. So you
Yeah.
got a whole generation who have to play 3 games before they get to 4 because the story looks pretty. I don't know what Prime 4 is going to be. I mean, we have Psylocke, we have some like mock droids, who knows, space pirates. We'll see what happens there. But I think Nintendo realizes, okay, before we release this, we should release 1, 2, and 3 and kind of like introduce people to 3D Metroid.
Yeah, which is a great idea. I think it's a great idea. Uh, I I thought I heard about some kind of Nintendo Direct by the end of August. I think I missed out on that one. I don't know, but I suspect we might have another Nintendo Direct in September because usually it's each 3 months or so. I might be wrong on that. So my guess, if we really get a Nintendo Direct in September, um, I think a very smart play would be them announcing Metroid Prime 2. Because the next Direct will most likely be December, and that would be after November. So they would miss the time. Um
Well, they have to get ready. I mean, Nintendo, Christmas is coming. They got to get ready, and to release Metroid Prime 2, that's just that'd be the easiest thing they could do.
yeah, yeah. And I'm looking forward for it. And to be ready for Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, I got to play again Metroid Prime, the first one, and right now I'm recording offline Prime 2, and I enjoyed this game as much as 12 years ago or 13 years ago because I did play it like roughly 13 years ago and I enjoyed it. And as a child, I also played it, but I was really bad as a child, so that's another story. But I always add lots of love for Metroid Prime 2. I think it's a classic, and I cannot wait to see other generation trying to get into it.
Well, I mean, Metroid Prime 2 it's like a typical Nintendo sequel. It's a series departure from Metroid Prime. Because, gone is the wave beam, the plasma beam, the ice beam. All that's gone. You're not fighting Ridley. You're not talking about Chozo. It's a very different sequel. There's a light and there's a dark dynamic. And the game was a lot more difficult than Prime.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of bosses happen in the Dark World where your energy is drained.
Oh yeah.
And like to get the Spider Ball, compare TARDIS to the Spider Guardian. It's like one is L,
Yeah,
one is
well,
easy, one is L.
Well, it's good that you bring that up because so I did a playthrough for this podcast. I played through Metroid Prime 2, but I played the trilogy edition,
Yeah,
with the motion controls, and that's I first played Metroid Prime 2, post COVID.
yeah,
All right, I didn't play this at release, so I I wouldn't say I'm new to the game, but I didn't have built-in memories with the game.
yeah,
So I have no problems playing Metroid Prime 2, on the Trilogy Edition. But since I got this GameCube edition this week, I thought, okay, I'll just, give this a shot. How much more different can it be? It's way different. I died, let's see here. Every boss fight so far, I've died at least once. Like a Morbus, easy fight, I died 2 or 3 times. And now I'm trying to do the Boost Guardian. And the Boost Guardian was always difficult. But now with the GameCube edition, like I I'm sitting here like, did I miss an energy tank? What's going on? Because this has never been this difficult, and I'm just wondering, did they make the difficulty less for the trilogy edition, or am I
Yes,
just
they did.
having a mental hiccup? They did.
They did. So like the original was really hard, and the trilogy they were like, let's give the player more of a chance. And if you want a closer to home difficulty with the trilogy, you need to play the hard mode. Um, the hard mode of the trilogy is the normal mode of the OG.
Okay, that explains it. Thank you. Because I'm sitting here on the GameCube. I'm like, I up until us talking right now, I started playing at 4:30, and I just kept dying and dying at the Boost Guardian. And I'm like, I'm shooting super missiles, and I feel like I'm doing everything right, but it's like I feel like my energy's draining faster. It's the difficulty is definitely different from the trilogy edition. So, thank you
Yeah.
for clarifying that.
And the other thing with the trilogy one, and this is also why I decided to play the trilogy over the the other one, the spring ball. So
Oh
it's
yes, yes,
jumping. The
yeah.
original
What?
didn't add that, so you need to time the bomb, bomb, bomb. And now you're trying,
Right.
so you do like bomb,
Yeah.
bomb, bomb, but bomb, bomb,
All right.
bomb. You miss the other one. You fall back.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, again and again and again. Do you
So for those
remember
well,
the?
anyway, I just want to say, so for those listening to this on podcast, we're on video and we're like raising our hands up and down, trying to like, relate like how easy it is to do the spring ball with the Wii remote, but you don't have that on GameCube, so you shouldn't have, yeah, you're timing your bombs just right.
It's like on. I will bring back Metroid Prime One because that there was that energy tank in the Magmore Cavern. You know which one I'm talking about, do you?
Energy tank, Magmore.
Morph
I'll
ball,
know it when you say it.
morph
Morphball.
ball. Time your bomb to go to the second
Oh
floor.
my God, yeah, right before you
If
get to
you miss,
Fendrana. Right,
yeah,
yes.
if you
Yeah.
miss, you go dip your feet into the lava. Then you try
Yes.
again, and then you go back. So I
Yeah,
did I did a playthrough like 3 years ago, and that was on the GameCube because I actually at that point I had lost my Wiimote, so I spent 2 hours on that energy tank.
2 hours. All right. I have a similar story, but the energy tank is it's the one in Metroid Prime 2. It's end game, all right? So you've got the light suit and everything. So you go back to the Aegon Waste, you do the puzzle, and you get the sundial thing to open up the compartment above the door, and there's an energy tank in there and you have to spin attack into it.
Yeah,
Do you know which one I'm talking about?
yeah.
I I spend an hour at least trying to spin attack into that compartment to get that one energy tank. And it's completely frustrating. I don't know why they made the little compartment for that energy tank so small. And here we have Metroid Prime 2, and we're finally seeing a 3D screw attack. I'm not a fan of the 3D screw attack. I think the game could have, I think it could have done without, but I think what are your thoughts on the screw attack in Metroid Prime 2?
Um, I will be honest. It's been a long time, but I will say it was something. Um, I I did play the previous Metroid in the past as a child, but I never really went that far into the games. The first Metroid game I really finished was the first Prime game, and then Prime 2. But actually, Prime 2, fun fact, I did almost beat it. I arrived at one of the last few bosses, but I had a few energy tank missing, and that was on the GameCube. And good luck beating that boss if you don't have everything. And when I was a teenager, YouTube wasn't the way it is now. Not everyone had their playthrough, and not the entire internet was wired in a way where you search, you find. and I was young as well, so maybe I was just stupid, but I I just didn't 100% the game, and you could feel it. That boss, if you don't have every missile, every energy tank, you cry, especially on the GameCube.
Which
So
boss?
the one of the last, I forgot. I think it's the Ink Emperor. That's just before the last Dark Samus. That's like at the very, very,
Oh
very
yeah,
end of the game. Like all I
yeah, the
remember
one with
is
the
him spinning around. It's
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, you really need the seeker missiles for that one. And
yeah,
that's another thing that we got here in Prime 2 that's carried over to, games like Dread, are those seeker missiles. And to get the seeker missiles, that puzzle used to give me the worst difficulty, but then once you know the order of the spin balls, the colors, it's like amber, cobalt, whatever. Once you know the order, you're fine. But when I first played it, that little puzzle to get the seeker missiles was always a complete bitch.
yeah. And the screw attack, to get back to the screw attack because you asked for the screw attack. Because I didn't add prior experience, I just arrived there. Oh, I can spin like that and delete stuff I come across. That was cool. I like it. I have no prior experience with it. Uh,
But
I'd
it,
say
it
I'd say it's easier in 2D with Dread. That's one thing I will praise about Dread. Screw attack is easy to use, but yeah,
well, in any 2D game, the screw attack is easier. To bring it you know, into a 3D environment, I don't think it was poorly executed. I mean, because it's limited, you only get 5 jumps, and then, if you don't make the jump, then depending on where you are, you might die. And you take a little bit of damage. But I'm just not a fan of the screw attack, but I see where it is integral, and it was something that needed to be introduced into the Prime series.
yeah. And Prime Tree as well as it, and it's funny because I mentioned that, and Prime Tree actually I got stuck really early, and I'm looking forward to replay it and to actually beat it this time around. But yeah, Prime 2 is a game I truly love and adore. I think it's a perfect sequel to the first Prime. And it's interesting because you mentioned the wave beam and the ice beam and the plasma beam. They still tried to inspire themselves because the dark beam is like the ice beam, but a bit different. But it's still similar. Like it freezes the Metroids when you fight the Metroids, and the light beam it burns the bad guys, like plasma beam. So that's kind of cool. Um, Now if I can
Well,
say something, oh, I will let you go on. Sorry.
I mean, you're talking about the dark beam and the light beam. They introduced an ammo system. So you have 50, 100, 150, 200. I think it goes up to 250. Um, and then you have ammo refill stations. That was another thing. You've never needed ammunition before in a Metroid game, and they were kind of like one and done. I mean, kind of in like Prime 3, it's sort of there, but there's a limited amount of like quote unquote bullets in the clip, with Metroid Prime 2. And that was another thing that you kind of had to get adjusted to. Like, oh, I'm low on light beam ammo, so I'm going to use my dark beam and take out, little and like flowers and bugs around me to get more light ammo and vice versa.
Yeah, and that's a very interesting component to that game, and that's something I really praise because they were creative and that added more stuff to search for in the game. So I thought that was a great idea, and it also adds difficulty to the entire game because now you cannot simply spam your strongest beam because now you need to swap your ammo and such. So this was a great idea. And now if there's one thing I'm not a really big fan of, the annihilator beam. I feel like this is a cool idea that it uses both light and dark. But I feel like they were out of ideas as well. They were like, yeah, we have two cool beams. What do we do? Huh, let's smash them up together.
So piggybacking on that, the Annihilator beam, it opens up certain doors and use it with the sonic visor. And I really like the sonic visor. And in my kind of research doing Metroid Prime 2, I there was an interview on another podcast, and one of the devs of Metroid Prime 2, I guess from Retro, said that the Echo visor, the graphics, it's just black, and then you can see, the thing sending, the signals. That was inspired by Ben Affleck's Daredevil, and once I heard that, it kind of made sense. Have you ever seen that movie?
Yeah, I've
Yeah.
seen lots of movies, but
Yeah,
yeah,
so so Daredevil's blind and but like, he kind of has like a sensory I don't know what you would call it, but he can like kind of like see the sounds. And that's where the inspiration for the sonic visor came from. And I thought that was fun. Because we don't have the typical thermal visor, X-ray visor. So they changed it up a little bit. I mean, the dark visor is kind of a thermal visor because you can see stuff that wasn't there and all that.
yeah. It's also very similar to the X-ray. And to kind of piggyback off what you said, I'm not the biggest fan of the Echo Visor. I feel like the Echo Visor was mainly there because we had two visors in Prime, and Prime 2 they wanted to have two visors as well, and the biggest goal with it is puzzle solving, and as much as it's cool and all, you could do the same with the Dark Visor.
Yeah.
Um,
I was calling it the sonic visor. You're right, it's the echo visor.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's cool. I like the idea, but is it really needed? You get it at the very, very end of the game, and it's really for puzzle solving.
Yeah. And you were talking about, you're trying to 100% the game. I've 100% the game. My last playthrough, I missed three missile expansions, and I was like, I can't remember where they are. But now that I'm doing the GameCube version, I remembered where they were. But when it comes to doing like 100% scans, I've never 100% scanned, had a full 100% scan playthrough, because on certain bosses, like there's a very short window of time where you can scan them, and then they become dark, and then you can scan them in their dark form. But that window, when like I think it's like the Bomb Guardian, it's like
Yeah,
an
yeah, that's
alpha,
the Bomb
right?
Guardian. Yeah,
You got this short window, like, okay, I'm going to scan you. Then it becomes the Bomb Guardian, and you can scan it till hell. So to get 100% scans on Metroid Prime 2 Echoes, I don't think I've ever done it. And I think it's really difficult because of those, those little short windows that you have.
yeah, and another boss. I don't even know if we can really scan it. It's the Spider Guardian because he's on that kind of
Yeah,
maze
on
of
the
of
magnetic rails.
yeah.
Yeah.
Can you
So
really scan it?
you can. And my last playthrough, I just rushed in to do the Spider Guardian. And there's like a window, like, so there's the door before you enter the Spider Guardian boss fight. And there's like a little window, and you can see the Spider Guardian go through this window. And you have to time the scan just right to get the Spider Guardian scanned. And that's the only place that you can scan the Spider Guardian. It's just like, come on, just like Retro, throw me a bone here. Like, why are you making this so difficult?
People were complaining Prime was too easy. Let's double up the difficulty.
Exactly.
But I must say, uh, Prime 2 was very creative when it comes to enemies. It was a far bigger improvement over the original. The original, it's more like, oh, what's the right weapon? That guy is white, let's use the white. That guy is red, let's use the red. Oh, that's a Metroid, let's ice it. Oh, that's a flying guy, super missile. Like, once you know, you know. And most of the bosses in Prime were kind of easy. They had like two or three patterns of attack, and you're like,
Yeah.
okay, I just dodge, dodge, pew, pew, over. Like I did struggle with Ridley, but that boss was like annoying. It's not even a fun boss because like he flies and he comes back. He flies
Yeah.
and he comes back. And at the very end, you need to shoot him on the chest, but the more you shoot him on the chest, the shorter the window is. So it's like manufactured difficulty. It's like you need to be really fast. That
Well, so, we don't have Ridley in Metroid Prime 2, but what we do have is Dark Samus. And we don't have Dark Samus, just once. We have Dark Samus, what, three times?
yeah,
And it's
if you
not really a hard
100%.
boss. Yeah, it's not a hard boss fight every time you face Dark Samus. She just I don't know what Dark Samus is, if it's like a dark clone or I always forget what she's infused with Phazon or something. But it's never a hard fight. I remember the first time I played Metroid Prime 2, I thought, oh my god, this is Dark Samus, this is a big boss fight. And as long as you kind of stayed out of the way of the Phazon, uh, you know, did some damage control, that was a 10 minute fight at best.
Yeah. I just fought her for the first time again yesterday because right now I'm doing the playthrough and I just fought her yesterday and that was so easy. I was shocked how easy it was and I'm like, is it because I'm on the Wii or on GameCube it was also that easy? And this I can't remember because I did play on the GameCube many years ago, but like that's like 15 years, 12, 15 years ago, so my memory is not that fresh, but I
Well, I'm
found
hoping
her
that
easy.
yeah, I'm hoping that I get past the Boost Guardian on the GameCube so I can see the difference between Dark Samus between GameCube and Trilogy, because it's not difficult on Trilogy at all.
Yeah.
And the second iteration, you need the one of the visors, the dark visor. You kind of go to that infrared, and then you can see her, like, going around the room. Um, you know, it's I think the Dark Samus boss fight sort of fell short. It felt like it should have been a major one, and it just kind of felt like, okay, here's a stopgap. You don't get too much for it. In the first fight, you get the Dark Beam, which is something that, of course, you're going to need throughout the game. But after the second fight with Dark Samus, that's when I think you get the Echo Visor.
Yeah. That's when you get
Yeah,
the Echo Visor. And not that far after you get the screw attack. I think the screw attack was very close by. Oh, that game is so far
I,
in my memory.
I think you have to leave. You have to leave Sanctuary Fortress, go get something, and then come back and get Screw Attack. Because I think you need. Yeah,
Screw attack was in Torvis? No, that's Power Bomb.
no, Screw Attack was in Sanctuary Fortress.
Oh yeah, you need to
Yeah,
swap a lot until you reach the right place. I
yeah, you
remember
have to go
now.
to the Dark World and then do the spinners and all that. But since we're talking about all the different areas, so between Aegon Wastes, Forbus Bog, and Sanctuary Fortress, what is your favorite area of the game? Or it could be the
Sanctuary.
the temp or the temple grounds.
Sanctuary, and I will say this, Sanctuary has the
Agreed.
best music and
Yes.
the level is cool and great. And we get new enemies. And for the first time, we actually use the boost ball to beat some bad guys. And it's really cool. You know these rowboat that have like four legs and
Yeah, it
they
kind of drop.
spin? You use the
Hmm.
boost ball and then boom, they stop spinning. And you just laid some bomb underneath them and then you escape. That's the best way to get rid of them. But that's a cool way.
Well,
I
that
don't.
see that talking about the scanning again, that's another place where, like, okay, you scan the enemy in its first phase, but then once you do the boost ball and it separates, the bottom half explodes and the head comes off and keeps trying to kill you. You have to scan the head because that's a completely different drone or something.
Yeah. I think this is one of the many charms Prime 2 has, the diversity of the enemies. It's more than just, oh, I got the right beam. It's like that enemy has like two phase, and it's not even a boss. It's just a small enemy you just need to beat twice.
Well,
And
the final boss of Sanctuary Fortress is just like a huge version of those drones because then you have to use the boost ball to take out its legs. Quadraxis. I think Quadraxis is one of the best Metroid bosses ever.
yeah, I'd say I thought Chica was more fun because it had two phases, but
Oh,
that's like
the
12
moth.
years. Yeah, the one that gives the
I
echo
hate.
visor.
Oh, I hate that moth. You had to use the seeker missiles on the wings. That
Yeah,
boss. To this day, I mean, even on the trilogy edition, I might die once or twice trying to do that one. I don't know what it is because you had the grapple and you have to go from island to island to keep your energy up, but you have to get right behind it and then use the seeker missiles. That boss has always been kind of a thorn in my side.
there's one thing I will say that Prime did slightly better. The music and the levels themselves, like they feel very different from what we got with Prime 2. Like more cavern, you play it like 20-second, 30-second, and you're like, I know where I am just by listening to what's going on. And the same goes for Fendron Adrift. You're like, oh, that's quiet. And even Fendron Adrift has like two different music, like the speed up one where you get the gravity suit, and there's a energy tank in the ice, or you got like the normal one where we get the wave beam, the spider ball, and most of the other item. We got Talon Overworld that had great music when you're underwater. That's like someone that didn't know a thing about Metroid came to my stream because they watched my other stuff. They're like, "Oh, that music is cool," and I'm like, "That's true. That's Metroid Nintendo at its finest. The music is wow." Now, when it comes to Prime 2, the biggest reason why I praise so much Sanctuary, it's because this level is different from Torvus and Agen, music and design
Definitely.
wise.
Yeah,
Um,
it's just the color palette of Sanctuary Fortress, those reds, the blacks, it feels like you're in like a it feels like you're inside of like a machine. The music is very I wouldn't say I don't know what the word is. I wouldn't say chip tune, but it's got lots of bloops and bleeps. It's just you feel
Electro,
like you're yes, yeah. I mean, I would definitely say that Metroid Prime, the original the placemaking, you walk into Fendrana Drifts and it just opens up and that music kicks in and it's completely serene. It's all snow covered. I mean, that's a memorable moment in video game history. They tried that with Metroid Prime 2. They tried it so when you walk into Aegon Waste, there's a little cutscene, and here's Aegon Waste, but it just didn't work like it did in Prime. And they tried it at Torvus Bog and at Sanctuary Fortress. I forget kind of where they do that whole this is Sanctuary Fortress part, but yeah, the placemaking kind of fell short, especially with the music. Not so much the graphics, though. You definitely got a sense that okay, Aegon Wastes, this used to be rich farmland, now it's dead. Torvus Bog, this used to be a forest, now it's dead. Sanctuary Fortress, this place has been corrupted.
yeah. And I will say that even there's some kind of rain you can see in Sanctuary when you look at the background and such, but that rain seems so fake. So it gives a very interesting aesthetic. And compare this to like I think it's Torvus that had also rain. Torvus is more like normal rain or acid rain, but you don't really see something that different. But you can see parallels between Sanctuary rain and Torvus rain, which was really cool to witness. But
Well, it's never gonna be it's never gonna be Talon 4 Overworld.
yeah,
Ship lands, you get out. It's the only part of the I think the only part in Prime when it's raining is at the beginning. But
it's I
that
think it's
having that
actually
rain,
always raining. I think it's always raining on Talon Overworld. I think.
I have to double check that. Well, I'll have to fact check myself on that. But yeah, I kind of remember there was some sort of rain on Sanctuary Fortress, I
Yeah,
think.
And sadly, with Prime 2, I feel like Turbo's Bug and Aegon Waste are very similar. They are very similar. And the music are not that memorable. That's a sad part about that. I
No.
remember the fight with the bosses. I remember the action. I remember, oh, that was a cool level to play in, but the music in these two, can't remember it, sadly. So that's one thing that they kind of miss on, but at least we got Sanctuary, right? Something thing everyone can agree on. Um, what else? I
Well,
think
here's no. Go ahead.
I think one great thing they did with Prime 2, it feels a lot more like they worked on the story. And when you read through the logs and when you watch the cutscenes, it's almost a movie. Is it the richest movie out there? I
Yes.
don't think so, but it's a lot more cinematic than Prime 1. Prime 1 is like,
Yes.
oh, we got crash landed there. There's a big baddie we need to take down, so we need to collect stuff to take it down. But here we got like a war that lasted for like 50 years to 100 years, and that war destroyed the world, and we got like these space pirates trying to corrupt the place even more, and we got the Federation after them, but then the locals they're like, oh, we can eat these Federation people and these space pirate. That I feel like there's more layer to the story, and I like that.
Well, it's dual layered, and that's one thing I like about the story of Metroid Prime Two is okay. Phazon crashes on Aether, right? Somehow Phazon crashes on Aether, and it corrupts the planet to a light and a dark world. Meanwhile, the Federation is chasing, the space pirates, and the space pirates realize, oh, okay, there's Phazon on this planet. We need that Phazon. But when we got here, all hell was breaking loose, and these dark creatures were killing us. And then they're like, and on top of that, there's this Samus the Hunter's here, but she doesn't look like Samus the Hunter at all. She looks dark. What's going on there? And then you keep reading the lore. It's like, oh, great. Samus is here. So we have two Samuses. These things are still killing us. It's just, it is a very interesting story. And the Luminoth, I would like to see the Luminoth again. I just thought they were really interesting. They're kind of Chozo adjacent. Someplace in the lore they're talking about. They traveled the galaxy and met all these other uh, civilizations, and one of them was the Chozo.
And they got along well, and they inspired
Yeah.
themselves from the Chozo. So that's one of the coolest part because you try to connect as much as you can the sequel with the first game, which is great.
Yes, I definitely hope that somehow the Luminoth appear again in the Metroid franchise. Whether we see them in Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, I'm curious, but we shall see what we shall see.
And for the first time in the Prime series, at least, we got friends. Because outside of that, like you play the first Metroid Prime, everything wants to kill you.
Yes.
It's, but here you meet that creature that's like, help us, and we shall be cool with you. And you're like, cool, I got a
Right.
friend.
So like, yeah. So you have Umos is like the only living Luminoth, and then after you beat the game, they all come out of stasis and hibernation. They're like, oh, thank you, and then Samus just kind of like does like the piece and just walks out. I thought that was a nice little ending cutscene.
Yeah. Um, that game, classic, classic game.
Yeah.
I
Um, Kind of a funny side note, I guess. Have you ever like? I've never been able to sequence break a Prime game at all. Like I know it can be done in Prime, uh, but I saw someone do a suitless run of Metroid Prime 2, where basically they got all the keys to the Aegon Wastes, and somehow they just skipped it and just went to Torbus Bog somehow. Is this
I
something
will
that you
be
know about, or?
I will be honest. I know about sequence breaking, but I suck too much at games to sequence break myself. So,
Okay.
I know what it is. It's you skip some layer, like you instead of going, for example, for the morph ball first, you go for the grapple beam first, or instead of going for the wave beam first, you get a plasma beam first, or you get the ice beam first, or instead of having the Vario suit, you go right away to the gravity suit or the phasing suit. That's sequence
Yeah, see,
breaking, but
I've never sequence broke any of the Prime games. I sequence broke Metroid Dread the hell out of that when I sequence broke Super Metroid. When it comes to 2D Metroids, I can sequence break. When it comes to a Prime game, I can't sequence break them. And something about the Prime games, all of them, 1, 2, and 3, and probably going to be 4, is my my route optimization has never been good. It's like, okay, I'm done in Phendrana. I have to I have to backtrack to here, go here, and it just feels like I think my best time on Prime was 8 hours, and I think my best Prime, my best time, my best time on Metroid Prime 2. I can't get that game under 12 hours.
I think it's possible if you know the item exactly where to find them. Um, like what I plan to do eventually. Right now, I focus heavily on Prime 2 because I also want to beat Corruption and Other M before Prime 4 comes out. That's a lot of work because I try my best to at least have one playthrough with 100%. So I have notes, I have a guide to like where to find stuff and when I should have that kind of stuff to make sure I 100% the game. So that's a lot of work. I still like it. Like, the game is so fun. I enjoy it so much. But once I'm done with all of that behind the scene stuff, I want to go back to Metroid Prime. I think I will play the remastered one on Switch, because I just prefer normal controllers. I'm not the biggest fan of like Wiimote, to be honest. I think it's better than the GameCube version for sure. The controller are better. Maybe not the difficulty, but the controller for sure. I'd rather play on the Wii than the GameCube. And it's funny because on the GameCube, as a child, I think I played over like 20 hours, 30 hours Metroid Prime. So I know how they work, but I just think it's more fluid when you play Wii or Switch. And the same goes for Prime 2.
Well, that was the my experience with Prime Remaster for the Switch was okay, I prefer the trilogy edition, I prefer the motion controls, so I'm just going to use the motion controls on the Switch, and it just didn't work at all. It
Yeah.
seemed like a lot of the times like my Joy Cons had to like calibrate, and it just felt like I was constantly calibrating my Joy Cons to the point where I was just getting really frustrated, and I just went back to just using a pro controller, and then after it just clicked. So motion controls on Prime Remaster just didn't work for me.
Yeah. So my idea is once I'm done with these Prime games and other end, I will get back at Remaster and I will try a optimized path where I try to get every item as soon as I can to see how long my playthrough will be. And then I will try another road because I will know exactly where each item is, where I don't backtrack at all or almost. I well, it's impossible to not backtrack, but I will reduce the backtracking where okay, I can get 20 missile expansion in like 10 minutes. Then I will do that instead of like, oh, I will grab this and that, I will do this, I will come back, I will do this and that. So I will try every possible way to see how fast I can be. Because I do think you can 100% prime probably in 6 or 5 hours. I've seen on Facebook groups people are
Yes.
crazy. They do it in like 3 or 4 hours. I'm like, ow.
Yes.
I want to
Yeah.
figure
When
out how. I know it's possible,
yeah,
but how?
yeah, I have a portion on the podcast, and it's called "Stick It." It's sort of like me complaining. And when Prime Remaster came out, everyone on social media was like, "Oh yeah, Prime. I just finished it in 100% 3-4 hours." I'm like, "How the hell did you do that?" I think it's a great achievement that you can do it. But
I want to
it was
do it.
just like every day. Yeah. All right. All right. So, did we miss anything? We had the light world, the light and dark world. That wasn't, too confusing, was it?
No, it's simple. White, light, black, dark. Simple. Uh,
Yeah, but you don't really see too many games. I mean, the big one that always comes to mind, of course, is A Link to the Past, where you have to go to the dark world and do certain things, then come back to the light world. Um,
yeah. Well, I have a lesser known game where we have something similar, but it's also different. Prince of Persia: Water Wedding. It's not necessarily a dark and light, it's more like present and past. And sometimes they would require you to find a room to go to the past because on the present something blew up and you cannot access areas. So you swap between present and past to like find your way into the next item and that kind of stuff. So it's
yeah,
stuff
well,
you see in games.
yeah, Zelda Ocarina of Time. I mean, when you talk about time travel, it's Zelda Ocarina of Time. You're going forwards, you're going backwards, and all that. Um, so we've seen time travel, but like going from light world to dark world. The only other game I could think of that does this, and my experience is very, very, very brief, was Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion. It seems like there was a portal that you had to go through and do something. I forget what you got. But
That's
this,
glitching.
what's glitching?
You froze for a sec.
Oh, I have you.
Okay, okay, I think we are back now. I think it's my internet or yours. I don't know what happened there, but now it seems to be back now.
Okay.
Yeah, so it caught you off like when you started talking about Oblivion, Elder Scrolls something being
Okay.
similar with Light and Dark.
Well, I was just saying that the only other game I can think of where there's a light world, dark world dynamic in the game was Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion. But like I said, what I was saying was that I don't have a lot of experience with that game. I only did I wouldn't even I don't know if it was like a boss or something, but you had to like enter a dark realm to get a certain something. Um, so that's other than Zelda Link to the Past, I can't think of any other games with a dark light, dynamic.
There was a game, I haven't played that game for at least 15 years, so I might be wrong, but there was a Silent Hill game on the PlayStation Portable. I think we had the light and the dark world. Well, actually more like a normal world, and when you pass one of the portal, you are in the darker version of the normal world. So that's kind of similar, I think. But I might be wrong because I played the game 15 years ago. But
Well,
that's the
another
only title that comes to mind for me.
the other one, I don't think it's quite the same, but Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, you have the Hyrule, just regular Hyrule. Then you go to the depths, and it's kind of the exact opposite. It's kind of a darker version of Hyrule, but I don't think it's quite the same. There's not really portals to the depths. There's like little entrances, but there's not portals.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, so let's what do you think? So you think that we're going to see Metroid Prime 2 Echoes on the Switch for the 20th anniversary, November 15th.
Maybe
That's
not
that
November 15th. I think it will be like the Friday following that or the Friday prior that. Because usually I think they like to release game on Fridays, so that'd be actually that's the 15th. So I think we will get it on the 15th. Because I just realized Friday, November 15th. So yeah, I think we get remastered, Prime 2 remastered on the 15th.
Well, I have to wonder just because with Prime 4 Beyond coming out, Retro Studios has to be really busy right now, and to I guess they would have to have a whole team, remastering Prime 2 Echoes. But I mean, they shadow dropped Prime remastered, and I'm guessing they were working on Prime 4 at the same time. So I'm guessing they can do it with Prime 2.
Yeah, and I'm thinking like there was a lot of rumor we would get a trilogy or something on the Switch, ported on the Switch. So my guess, they were working on these Prime game for quite some time, and they didn't do it because they wanted to release it on a proper date when they know, okay, we got the ball going for Prime 4 Beyond. So that's my guess. I don't know if we will get Prime 3 before Beyond. I doubt it. Maybe they will drop it at the same time, or maybe they will make it a DLC. I don't know, but I'm sure Prime 2 will be remastered. And even there, like Prime 3 is more recent. It was on the Wii. So I don't know if they really want to mm, to spend some money on corruption. And on top of that, I think we had mixed feeling about corruption as a fan base. People were like, the first two are great, don't play the third one. I'm not in that boat. Even if I never really finished corruption, I liked what I played, but I got stuck and I sucked. So like my experience is very limited with corruption. But what I was able to play, I liked it. Um Not as
I
much as
don't
Prime
think
2.
I don't think it's a bad game. It's just the amount of cutscenes and the amount of people who talk in Metroid Prime 3 Corruption gets a little annoying. And us Metroid hardcore fans, we don't like a lot of talking in Metroid games. I mean, I think Samus had one line in Dread, and everybody, there were some people out there who were thinking, you know what, she shouldn't be talking. She shouldn't be talking.
And it's a video game, it's normal. And I I can see a lot of the criticism through the gameplay I was seeing to take my notes for my guide for once I get there. But again, I cannot wait to play it again because my experience, despite being limited, I liked it. It's not as good as Prime 1 or 2 because I finished Prime 1 and 2, but I never really finished Corruption. So for me, that's a sign. And I also finished Other M in the past. I didn't 100% Other M, but I think I did like 50, 60 something. But that's my average on the first playthrough without a guide. I really suck. I don't know how to find items. I need a guide. Um
I have a walkthrough of Other M on my YouTube at Two Consoles Too Late. So if you need some help, it just shows you where the pickups are. I think that's basically what I did. But so yes, I think we're going to see Metroid Prime 2 for the Switch right before Christmas. I think it's going to be another shadow drop. I think they're going to say, okay, you can download it today. You can wait 2 weeks and get your physical copy. And then I think what's going to happen is Metroid Prime 3, same thing. All right, here's your digital copy, here's your physical. And then they're going to say, you know what? Here's your collector steel box edition, trilogy for the Switch. It's only $100 and people are just going to boom, hand the money over.
yeah. I'm sad about these. Oh, let's have it digital and then physical. I am a strong believer of physical copies. I like that it's it's something that you own. You own like the disc, you own like the case, you own that product there. But when it's digital, it's sad to say, but if they want to pull the plug, and they do, you lost the game. It's
Yes.
the truth.
Yes. That's just the bigger, ongoing, conversation of physical versus digital. When you have something that's digital, you don't own it. They can take it away anytime
Yeah,
they want. So until you actually had the game in your hand, uh,
yeah.
y- you know,
And
so
touching the game, you touch grass. And if eventually you're like, oh, I'm done playing it, you can sell it back. You can like spread the game, but you cannot do the same when it's digital because you don't own it. You're like, yeah, I don't
Well,
really have a way to make money back.
well, with the collector's market right now, it's I'll be curious to see how much Switch games hold their value. But that's a whole
Another
different
topic. Yeah.
conversation. Yeah.
It's
All
funny
right. Well,
because one of the seller I've met was like, "Oh, do you want Switch game?" I'm like, "No, no." Anyway, sorry I caught you up, but yeah,
oh no, no. Um, so just real quick before we wrap up, we were talking about like the cut scenes of Prime Two. Do you remember the cut scene where it sort of flashes back to the Galactic Federation? They land on Aether, and all of a sudden they get overtaken by the Ing.
that was dark.
That was very dark. That was very dark. And
That's brave coming from a game rated T for teens. It's like
well, it
if
wasn't
that game,
gory.
yeah, if that game was made today, I can bet that would be a major. Even
Well,
if it's not really necessarily gore, it's still dark.
well, it's funny because when I was playing it, I just suddenly realized that they kind of took a page from Starship Troopers. You ever seen that movie?
No, sadly I didn't. I heard
Okay,
about it, but I didn't.
so in Starship Troopers, they're constantly being overrun by these aliens, and they call them bugs. And it's just like this giant swarm or horde of these bugs that are trying to kill these space marines. And I was sitting there playing, and I was like, man, they completely ripped that, didn't they? But if you have a chance, check out Starship Troopers. It's an awesome movie. It's a great book, Robert Heinlein.
That's amazing. I will look into it.
Definitely. All right. Well, thank you, multi-topic talk, for
Thanks
sitting
to
here and
you.
well, jazzing Metroid Prime 2. So we're definitely in agreement. We're gonna see it on Switch. It's not it's not as good as the original Prime, but what? Somewhat of a departure.
I'd say
Not
it's
as
I liked it more than Prime. I
really.
liked more Prime 2 than Prime 1. And um I I I don't know when I will drop reviews yet. I think I will wait until I finish Prime 2, but I like Prime 2 more. Like if we just think about the levels, Prime wins, but the overall game, I think Prime 2 is slightly better for me. And I just see myself replaying this game over and over again. The only reason why I didn't, it's because this game is a bit longer. But it's not necessarily a bad thing, it's just that it's time consuming. That's why. And like I got other stuff everyone does, you know. But again, it's not because it's a bad game, it's not because it has pacing issue. Uh it has ways it can improve. So do Prime as well. Um Prime, I can see stuff being changed and improved. Like every boss fight, like most of the enemies in Prime, I'm like, yeah, it's cool, but like it's a bit too easy. It's a bit too simple. Um, maybe I'm crazy. I don't know. I know a lot of people like Prime over Prime 2, and I can see why because the levels, the music, like a lot of people also has nostalgia toward it. And maybe it's because I have better nostalgia with Prime 2 than others. I don't know. I I don't know what would be the explanation, but I do like Prime 2 more than Prime 1.
I just I I just kind of put it in the category of it's your typical Nintendo sequel to a hugely successful game. You see it so many times. It's like the original Legend of Zelda, and then you have the Adventure of Link. It's like it's completely different, and it's way more difficult. You know, it's a great game, but I'd rather play the original. It's Prime Two is in that vein. It's like okay, it's a sequel to the original. We don't have Ridley. We don't have your wave, your ice, your plasma beams. We have a whole completely different arsenal. We're dealing with we had the space pirates, but then we're dealing with like the Luminoth. So it's a departure. The placemaking wasn't as good, um, and they could have done better. Yes. Not, I mean, because Metroid Prime, like we said, you walk into Phendrana, you know where you are. So, but I think, for someone, I'm just curious to see how the next generation, you know, looks at Prime 2, you know,
Yeah.
because, okay, I played Remastered, and I loved Remastered, but now I'm playing Prime 2, and it's a different beast altogether.
And I feel like Prime 2, another great thing they did improve on, the backtracking is nowhere near as bad as Prime 1. I think this is why they made you start in Temple Ground, because Temple Ground is the connecting place for all place. It's more than just like Magmore Cavern where, oh look, you go there to go in Fenrir Drift. That's basically why you go down there is to go in Fenrir Drift. In Prime
Yeah,
2, you don't
the
do that.
no, they had a hint system in Prime 2. Like, it would something would beep and like they'd be like, go to your map, and then they'd fast forward to like where the missing Luminoth gear was. So they did that with Prime 2 as well.
Yeah, I was more mentioning the backtracking than the int. The backtracking.
Oh,
Uh, the
yeah.
backtracking is far better in Prime 2 because you don't do that much backtracking. Like the most backtracking you do in Prime 2, I think it's by the very end when you collect the keys and when you go from Sanctuary to get a power bomb. That's the most backtracking you do with Prime 2. While Prime
Yeah.
1, it's 50-50, 50 progress, 50 backtracking. You keep doing back and forth Chozo, Magmore, Chozo, Fendrana, Chozo, Fendrana, Chozo, Talon, Talon, Mines, Chozo. It's,
Well, it's funny. It's funny that you bring that up because I never thought of it until now. So with Prime 1, you had the Chozo artifacts, and you needed all those artifacts to, get into the final area against Metroid Prime. And the Sky Temple keys of Metroid Prime 2, uh, that was, I mean, it takes at least personally, it takes like an hour or two just to collect them all.
yeah, like, it's the same with Prime. If you do a item collection can take you hours. Like on my most recent playthrough, it took me like there were two streams by the end of the playthrough where it was just collecting items. And I feel like Prime 2 it will be the same, but it won't be that bad because there will be less backtracking, I think. Um because most of the things they're wired in a way it's one thing that leads to another that leads to another instead of you go A, you go C, you go E, you go B, you go. I thought Prime was kind of more of a mess when it comes to collecting items, but maybe I'm crazy. I don't know.
I found the maps themselves, especially Sanctuary Fortress. My last playthrough, I did not get lost. I had a basic idea of where I was going, but pretty much every time I reached Sanctuary Fortress, when it came time to like get the screw attack, or even the uh, the spider ball, I kind of had to take pause, and sometimes I would actually have to go back to the internet and be like, how did you get there? I totally don't remember." So, um, that's my personal experience with Prime 2 is just like the maps and the levels of the 3D map. I would kind of be like, wait a minute, it got a little confusing for me.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm gonna wrap it up. Do you want to plug your YouTube?
Yeah, sure. So, my name's says everything. Multi-topic talk. I talk mainly movies, and I play a lot of video games. And uh, obviously, I have a mic, so when I play, I talk. That's the idea. And I kind of mentioned it earlier. I'm doing a playthrough of Metroid Prime 2 Echoes. Once I'm done recording all 18 parts, I will upload all 18 parts probably in like 3 to 6 weeks. I don't know yet. I will see when all of the footage is ready. Uh, Otherwise, as of right now, there's three full playthrough of Metroid Prime. One 3 years ago, one of my first playthrough, like with all of the items. One last year when Remastered came out, and one recently because Prime 4 is coming. And outside of that, I adore movies, so many podcast movies and such.
So, all right, that's one thing that we need. We'll wrap up on this. So we got the date of 2025 for Metroid Prime 4 Beyond. When do you think it's going to come out with Switch 2? Is it going to be a
Um,
packing game?
I I think it will be probably, it depends on their schedule next year, but I see it being November or December. It depends what Nintendo plan to release. If December and November are crowded, maybe we might get October, but I don't think it will be anytime sooner than like October. It's one of the last 3 months of next year's. It depends on what they want to release last. And I wouldn't be surprised if it's December, so they have more than enough time. Um, I wouldn't be surprised. Um, I
I
want them
agree.
I want them to take their time, and I mentioned gaming earlier. We mentioned Nintendo. I hated deeply what they did with Advance Wars Reboot Camp. They delayed the game like 3 times because of a war, because the team making the game was kind of not professional at all. They kept like pushing delays and they kept like kicking the can, as they call it. And it really destroyed any momentum the game had. And I just hope they won't do that with Prime
I don't
4.
I don't think that's happening. Like I said, people were getting really frustrated that they hadn't seen footage, but the minute that trailer dropped, any vitriol that anyone felt towards Nintendo, towards Retro, went out the door immediately because they finally had just a look at Metroid Prime 4. They knew that it was going to be real, and that it was coming sometime soon. But I agree. Yes, definitely Q4 of 2025.
One of the last 3 months. It depends on the rest of the schedule, but I wouldn't be surprised if that's December. Uh, and maybe Corruption comes out in the middle of the summer. Maybe. Like, if they don't have other big games, maybe.
Well,
But
the Switch is yeah, I mean they're starting to like wrap up things on the Switch, because with Switch 2
yeah,
coming down. But I think Metroid Prime 4, I think they're going to have like a special edition Switch. I think it's going to be on Switch and Switch 2,
yeah,
and you might get like a limited edition console. We'll see. If I was Nintendo, I just think that would be the smart business decision. Because if you're going to do it with
yeah.
Zelda, why not do it with Metroid?
Yeah, I think you're right on that. And a lot of times when they cross over new generation of console, they have these last few games they want out on the previous and the new one. So I wouldn't be surprised if we also get two slightly different games, one for the Switch and one for the Switch 2, because sometime we got that kind of stuff happening. One of my favorite IP, Splinter Cell, when it came from Xbox to Xbox 360. We had two totally different games. I don't think Metroid Prime 4 Beyond will be the same. I think if they change it, it's just a bit like maybe some item placement or maybe a different ending. I don't know, but maybe they will change a bit the game so you feel like you need to purchase both the Switch and the Switch 2 version. I wouldn't be
The big,
surprised.
yeah, I mean the big examples that kind of like crossed consoles. Uh, Zelda Twilight Princess, you had GameCube to Wii, and then Breath of the Wild, you went from Wii U to Switch. But I don't think other than Link. So with Zelda Twilight Princess, I think with Link was left-handed on GameCube, and then when it went to Wii, you had motion control, so Link had to be right-handed. I think that was, so your maps were just, completely flipped over. Um, so I don't think, if they do Metroid Prime 4 on, I think it's going to be on Switch and Switch 2. I mean, obviously the graphics would be better on Switch too,
Yeah,
but I don't think they would switch the games between the two consoles.
yeah. So, um, what do you have going on your end of the internet?
So basically, I just have the two consoles, too late podcast. That's my main thrust. But I do have a YouTube channel, and I've done some video production. Like I said, I my last walkthrough I did for a video game was Twilight Princess, the HD version for the Wii U, which is the best way to play that game, if you ask me. Um, so I did that. I've done pretty much walkthroughs for all the Metroid games. Um, some of them have commentary, some of them don't. So I I don't, put a lot into making videos. I have a sort of a joke series on my YouTube channel called Metroid University, where it shows you kind of like how to sequence break certain Metroid games. And the my sequence break video for the original Metroid on the NES, you can do a wall jump and get the various suit early without using the ice beam. That's got a lot of views, and I did it as a complete joke. The video is not intended in any way to be instructional or educational. I did all those videos as a joke, and that one's got thousands of views. I'm just like, okay, I'm not making any money off of it, but yeah. So I've got a couple videos out there, and I stream on Twitch every so often. Not as much as I would like. I used to try to do it every Monday, Thursday, and I might get back into that as well.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if you'd like to add anything else, if you have another last question, because I will also wrap up soon. Um, so I'm wondering if we are done now.
Uh, no, I think we got everything.
So thank you for having me. That was very fun, and yeah, I enjoyed that. Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you for coming on here at multi-topic talk, and definitely check out your YouTube. You have it. So when you stream your games, you're just streaming to YouTube, not to
Yeah,
Twitch.
yeah. I
Okay,
sometime well, I do stream my podcast on Twitch and YouTube because StreamYard does send it to both, but the gaming content not that much on Twitch. I will be blunt and honest, Twitch, I'm not the biggest fan of that platform.
I'm
um
not.
I like YouTube a lot more. Uh anyway, I think
Yeah.
we are out.